most vocal activist of the fat acceptance movement had labelled him a Nazi and stated that it would be fueling hate by speaking to him. After months of public attacks for the inclusion of this call, my emotions altered between intrigue and nervousness. After all, I had never spoken to a Nazi before. I continued to reach out to these activists, however they were quick to decline a call, instead heading to social media to dispute the project, and myself as its author. The most prominent reason for not contributing seemed to be a meeting I had planned with fat acceptance debunker Dermeister Entertainment. Dermeister is one of many YouTubers who creates compilations mocking the idea of fat acceptance. I tried to put myself in their shoes and I could understand their fear. What if my intentions were to simply mock them? I'm sure they receive enough of that kind of attention anyway. However, I felt there was more of a free speech issue at play here. They had labelled Dermeister a neo-Nazi and a voice of hate. If this was true, I felt it was even more important to speak to him. Perhaps then we could all sympathise with what fat activists were up against.
These fat, jiggly arms, okay? If you have a problem with that, keep it to yourself.
If fat shaming was as negative as obesity itself, it may spotlight why so many activists were put off by my call with Dermeister Entertainment. Nevertheless, this call was important to me, and it was finally time to speak to him. It was the call that had meant many would not appear in this film, or talk to me away from the cameras. The most vocal activist of the fat acceptance movement had labelled him a Nazi, and stated that it would be fueling hate by speaking to him. After months of public attacks for the inclusion of this call, my emotions altered between intrigue and nervousness. After all, I had never spoken to a Nazi before.
Hi.
Hello.
It finally worked. How's it going?
Thank you ever so much for doing this.
I think it's really cool and really good that you're trying to hear both sides. It might sound weird coming from me, but I do really try to listen to both sides. And I myself, I'm still a little bit overweight, but I used to be hugely overweight. And so I know what that side's kind of like. But I think it's pretty cool that you're listening to both sides.
Could it be? After months of public attacks against the film for the inclusion of this hate-filled Nazi, he was just a normal guy. But perhaps he had just pulled the wool over my eyes. After all, the emotions fat people felt watching his videos were real to them, and they could justify those emotions.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a Nazi. First of all, I may be German. That doesn't make me a Nazi. I'm half African. I'm half German. So I'm brown. My skin is brown. So it kind of makes it weird when people call me a Nazi. So I have to laugh at that. I'm pretty much normally pretty leftist leanings. I mean, I'm not left, but I have more left leanings than I have right leanings. Put it that way.
Do you think your content is bullying?
No, I don't think it's bullying because I don't attack fat people per se. I just attack the fat acceptance movement and people that are behind the fat acceptance movement. And who think it's okay to, celebrate their fatness. They would probably say I'm bullying, but I don't believe that I'm bullying, no.
A lot of the time they say they're not trying to glorify obesity. They just want to say like it's okay to live, to be me. What do you think? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would respond to that. They should, really look into what they post online because it's definitely not saying that it's, they're definitely celebrating it. That's what they're doing. You have a lot of people who, especially on Tumblr, who shame people who aren't overweight and who say that people who aren't overweight or obese have privilege. And I don't think that's, I believe that is definitely celebrating obesity.
The call went nothing how I expected. I walked away shocked at how a man's character away from the social media facade could be so different. Dermeister seemed like a well-mannered and intelligent human being. His mission to fight what he felt was wrong in the acceptance of obesity seemed different from what he presented in his videos, which sometimes felt simply mean-spirited and cruel. But if you thought something was completely and utterly wrong, wouldn't you ridicule it too? I mean, isn't that the nature of the internet? My main admiration for Dermeister came from the fact he was ready and willing to talk to me, something many of the most vocal fat activists had not yet done. In many ways, I felt that both sides had used similar tactics, attacking one another without communicating and finding a common understanding. I had spoken to what was meant to be my most controversial contributor. It was now time to once again reach out to those who were so deeply put off by myself and this call, to see if we could find some kind of resolution.